My name is Rich Schmidt. I'm here with Amael Orrego. It's February 27th, 2024. We're at Benton-Lane Winery in Monroe. And Amael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
First question to get things rolling is why wine?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a fantastic question, you know. And yeah, I believe there's no like a easy answer either. It's complex, right? I mean, we're just talking that winemaking, it's a lot of work. It needs to be there's a lot of passion behind it. So when you make a decision like go into wine, you know, there's a lot of different factors that, you know, that have to influence your ultimate decision. To start, let's go back a little bit. I mean, my childhood, right? I grew up in the countryside in Santiago, you know, that's like the central region of Chile. I was born and raised in the countryside. Very different than here, you know. It's a lot drier, but same amount of wild wilderness, you know. That's pretty great. So I had a great childhood, you know, with my cousins, like running around the field, you know, the countryside. It was awesome. So I did realize, like early on, that I didn't want to work in an office. I mean, in the city, I mean, you know, I like this office, right? Like this view is pretty incredible, you know, to come here every day and see this is pretty great. So I did knew that. So I really wanted to do something that would allow me to work in the land, right, in the countryside. So that's one thing I would say. Second, my family influence. You know, on my father's side, I have an interesting mix of art and science. You know, a lot of doctors in the family. And on my mother's side, which is a huge family, big. I'm talking about 60 first cousins. You know, it's huge. Living in the same town, a town like as big as Monroe. So we were all again, playing in the field all my childhood. And on my mother's side, we have a lot of agronomists, you know, like agricultural engineers. My grandfather, aunts and uncles, a couple of cousins. They weren't making any wine, you know, like it was fruit production, entomology, things like that. But I was able to see their jobs, you know, how they work the land, you know, and that was pretty present every single day of my life. So that's an important one as well. It make a huge impact. It was that huge. I end up going to agricultural engineering school, you know, like agricultural science. And you go. I mean, yeah, in Chile you study 5 years, and after the 3 years you have to specialize. You know, choose a specialization, which could be ag business, for example, or vegetable science, fruit production, animal production as well, and you can also choose winemaking and viticulture. I mean, from that standpoint, winemaking, it sound a lot more interesting to me. And the reason behind that, I would think I need to go back to my childhood a little bit, you know, because my favorite, most happiest memories that I have, it was around the kitchen table, you know. I remember my dad and my mother, you know, were great cooks, you know, cooking every single day for me and my brother. And being able to experience the aromas, you know, the flavors, you know. Because again, you can have a cup of rice, put some water, let it simmer for 17, 18 minutes, and you have food. I mean, and that's awesome. But seeing my parents, how they cook, you know, how they experiment with different flavors, ingredients, you know, salty sweetness, you know, bringing some balance to the food, acid and bitterness and spices. That was pretty great, you know. They were bringing, starting with something very humble, like a bowl of rice, you know, and building texture into the dish as well. You know, they were transforming something that was very simple at first. So when I was choosing my path, you know, in university, that's what I mean. The other areas, they were lacking that. It was like your creativity, input, your interpretation of something, right? Change something, transform something. Because I mean, it's all great, but like at the end of the day, an apple is gonna be an apple. You can take it from the tree, you can buy it from a grocery store, you can buy it from a farmer's market. It's gonna be delicious, don't get me wrong, but it's gonna be an apple. And winemaking, you have your input right there. It's in our nature, it's part of the culture, it's like it makes people happy. You're bringing joy to people, which is pretty incredible. And again, it's not like wine is a natural thing. I mean, it's made out of natural ingredients, it's a natural process. But if you grab, again, a cluster of Pinot Noir, for example, it couldn't be more different than a bottle of wine. That's when the winemaker comes in, You make decisions, you are interpreting a place, a site, a block, depending on your experience. And I thought that was pretty unique, It was like something pretty great to be a part of it. So that was an easy decision for me, and I really enjoyed the classes, the chemistry, the vinification classes, enology, sensory analysis, all of that. It was viticulture. I really, really liked it. And then I started my harvest, like the first harvest that I ever worked. And I have to be honest, I started that being pretty nervous, especially because, I met people that was older than me. They had more experience, they had worked a couple of harvests, and a lot of them hated it. It's hard, and a bunch of them, they actually quit it after the first day, right? So it's like, oh, I was nervous in terms like, am I gonna really like this, right? And for me, it was like love at first sight, which is kind of weird, but I loved it from the day one, It was hard. The physical aspect was incredible. I was a cellar hand, of course, but the physical aspect, the long hours, awesome, And I was learning so much. I didn't knew that I could learn so much, in a single day. And that's for me what like the ultimate thing, right? It's like I realized, it might be my first week on the harvest, on the job. I realized that this was a job that I will never stop learning. Every single day is going to be different. Every single year, every single vintage is going to be very, very different, right? So I really wanted to stick to it, choose my path, get as much experience as possible to make the best decisions, in a very changing industry. I think that's what got me into wine at first. Was like the first step. Different things, but that was the first steps. That's when I realized that I really wanted to do it.
We'll pick it back up there in a second. You mentioned obviously the education part and the focus, a couple years of focusing part. Tell me about the classes and about sort of the book learning, the textbook learning before you got out and got your hands dirty. What attracted you at that point before you'd actually done any of the work?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, so I studied in the Catholic University, Universidad Católica de Chile, which is like one of the biggest, more important universities in the country. There's a couple more that are excellent universities as well, and you can have a winemaker degree as well. So, but I went to that one, and because I really like the focus, they're like a lot of chemistry as well, but a lot of practical work, right? And for me, the first approach was vinification. And it basically was it was a year course that takes you to harvest. Basically every step of harvest, in theory. You don't really understand, but at least the theory is there. I love that, understanding, that the small decision that you can make that can impact something that you can be drinking in 2 years, you know? People are gonna be enjoying in a couple of years. That was like mind-blowing at first, right? And then when you put that, you know, for me, the why behind what's happening, it's so important. So when you put the vinification courses, you know, classes, and with enology, which is all about the chemistry, it was just like, God, this is just makes so much sense. And chemistry for me, especially in university, it was like perfect. You know, there's like a perfect science, and that's chemistry. You know, so I like to control things, right? I do. Being a winemaker, there's so many variables when it comes to winemaking that if I can control as much aspect as possible, I sleep better. You know, it's tough. But that thing is like the chemistry, okay, this is something that I can actually control, you know? I can predict stuff, you know? Vinification, things, you know, there's so many variables, you know, because there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of intuition. You have to build that intuition, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of intuition in making a wine, right? But if you're able to control the chemistry aspect, that's fantastic, right? That was like, great match. And then there was this class, it was sensory evaluation. They make you smell and taste not only wine, but different like solutions and different concentrations of like faults, you know, like bread or acidic or salty, sweet, like all of the like different flavors and compounds that a wine has. So those three things, you know, they just like clicked for me. They just make so much sense. Like, oh my God, it's like the perfect triangle, you know? You have the experience, you know, with this vinification, you have the science behind it, and then you have the creative, you know, like your sensory aspect, you know? So it's like the perfect triangle for me. And that was like how I fell in love with at least the theory behind winemaking, you know, because it's not a simple science, you know? There's so many things involved, and when you break down each one of these disciplines, you know, there's so many things, right? The thing that can influence some of the chemistry, you know, that it's going to influence some of the fermentation, some of the process that vinification, in vinification, that also is going to impact the flavors. You can break it down into 1,000 different aspects, right? Like weather, soil, of course, is a very key part of the expression, right? But also labor and the people that work in the vineyard, you know, the people that work in the harvest. So I don't know. There was, of course, very romantic vision early on, especially when I was in university. You know, you have no idea how hard a harvest is, but I had that like awesome romantic vision that I really want to explore.
So you talked about getting your hands dirty for the first time. Tell me about the work. Obviously, cellar work.
Yeah.
Not super exciting on its face. So what brought you back? What made you want to keep going when you were at the kind of the lowest level?
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, my first harvest was in Chile, of course. You know, I'm from Chile. I really wanted to learn as much as possible. You know, I really want to get as much experience. So I chose a pretty interesting location. It's called Emiliana Winery. It's in the Colchagua Valley, a little bit like a 200 kilometers south of Santiago. And I really wanted to work with this winemaker. It's called Álvaro Espinosa, who's one of the best winemakers in the country, best winemakers in the world. And they were like working 100% organically and biodynamically as well. That's great. That was a great starting point for me, like being able to learn again different type of farming in the vineyard and different techniques and approaches in the winery was pretty incredible. And yeah, you're right. It was pretty hard. It was hard work. It was intense, long hours. You know, getting your hands dirty. But I think it's like for me, it's like I still do that. You know, up to this day. You know, like being able and being present on each one of those, and each each step of the process, I think, is so important, you know. It's like when you really like understand, you know, how something changed, how something is transformed. I love getting my hands stained, you know. It's like, okay, this is like, and you can tell that I was working with Syrah, for example, you know, and at the end of the day, you were like working, your hands were like very, very dark. Or when you're working with Pinot, for example, you know, after a month working with Pinot, your hands stayed pretty clean still, right? And I love being like, not only, I mean, at that point, I was in the process, you know, hands-on 100%. I love every single minute of it, you know, the 18, 19 hours a day, you know, for a month. I love every single second, you know, because at the same time I was tasting, I was seeing, you know, I was smelling how everything was transforming. That was like that, I mean, and that first harvest, like, okay, I work with red varieties, for example, you know, it was all like mostly Bordeaux varieties, a little bit of Syrah, Grenache as well. But it's like, okay, I really want to like understand how other varieties or like wine varieties, you know, they transform in time, you know, they evolve, they ferment. I was like very like fairly young and really new in the industry, so I like have a lot of curiosity, you know, to understand the different like varieties, expression of like senses of place, right? So I wanted to like do things completely different, you know, from harvest to harvest, for example, right? You know, the first harvest I wanted to do all red, very like almost like old school red varieties, you know. Excellent, wonderful. You know, I mean, again, you learn about fermentation and extractions, you know, and different pump over programs and a lot of barrel programs as well, right? And it was incredible. I worked with the winemaking team. They were incredible. I learned so much. But at the same time, you know, my next step on my next harvest, I wanted to do something completely different. You know, I want to learn about cool climate variety, for example, because I was working in a very like warm valley winery. I want to go to maybe a coastal influenced winery, and that's what I did. You know, I went to Leyra Valley. You know, it's a very coastal, like very, very close to the ocean. When you get all this massive impact from the Pacific, right? So it's completely different. And you start, and I start working with Sauvignon Blanc, for example, you know, and other white varieties, you know, and in that mix, there was some Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And I think that was when it like actually like touched me, you know, it's like to taste those two wines, you know, those two varieties, and being so different from anything else, you know, depending not only on the valley, you know, or the like the vineyard that we're growing, but in different blocks, you know, it's like, oh God, this is something very, very new, very, very different. And that's why I said, like, yeah, this is something that I really want to keep learning, you know, those two varieties. Yeah, I think that was what kept me going, you know, like curiosity, for sure. You have to have the curiosity, you have to have that passion, you know. It's, for me, like, that's the best feeling, like learning every single day. The best feeling is like when I'm in a room and I'm the person who knows the least. It's like, that's my my favorite feeling in the world. It's like, I can only learn from this experience. That's pretty fascinating. And I felt like that, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm starting in a world of wine that has thousands of years of history, and I don't know anything, you know? That's so exciting, you know? That's like, wow, the only thing that I can do is learn and be better. That's it. So I was like, okay, this is it.
You talked earlier about the idea of sort of building intuition and building your knowledge. So I'm curious about that. Obviously, at that point, you're not cognizant of the whole process. You're being asked to do a certain task by people making decisions. So tell me about starting to get an intuition, starting to learn more of the process, and along the way, like where did you think you wanted to go? What did you think you wanted to do next?
So that's So I have to jump forward a little bit years, you know, because I completely knew what I was building. When I was getting experience in harvest, for example, working harvest and harvest, I was just learning, right? That was what I was feeling. It was incredible. But I think the first time that I had to that I realized that I was building intuition, with each one of those experiences, each one of those harvests, is when I got my first head winemaker job, and I was by myself making all the decisions, and at one point, I was still fairly young. I got this job, it's okay, what do I do? When do I harvest? And just I do tend to meditate, a lot, it's okay, let's go to a walk in the vineyards, right? For a couple of hours, just to think. I realized that I knew all those stuff, because I was building in the back of my brain, this intuition, about how to make the decisions, I remember conversation with winemakers, all the winemakers that I work with, that I learn from. It's I already have been building, or gathering all the tools that I needed to make the best possible decisions. At least to get through that first harvest, as a head winemaker. I knew it. But the thing about building intuition is of course, I'm fairly new to Benton-Lane here, it's been 18 months or so. And there's so much that I need to learn, that we need to learn as a company, this is a pretty exciting place, and we can talk about that later. But all the background all my background, all the conversations that I had, all the wine that I tasted, everything is building up in the back of my brain, as tools that will make me make the best decision, every single day. Do I know how these wines are gonna be in 5 years? Probably not, but I have an idea. I have an idea of how a wine that is tasting like this, from the past, from my back memory, it's gonna taste in 5 years. So it's a little bit like that.
So obviously we skipped over some steps there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the path from harvest intern to head winemaker. So after your second harvest,
right.
What was next for you at that point?
I work in this. It's called Amaina. It's a winery in the coastal region of Chile, very near to the Pacific Ocean. And then I came to California. I went to Sonoma to work in a beautiful winery, beautiful wines called Flowers. It's one of our sister wineries as well. That was just after starting to understand what Pinot and Chardonnay was all about, right? So I went to Flowers. It was so exciting to just be in a place that the focus was very clear. We make Pinot and Chard from the extreme Sonoma coast. That was amazing. The winemaking team, the people that I met, they were incredible. It was my first harvest abroad, and I love it. It's I really want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to be a traveling winemaker, right? I met great people, and I went back to Chile, to work a harvest at a winery called Veramonte, which is a very special winery for me. I met Rodrigo Soto, which I will consider one of my mentors for sure. He now runs Quintessa in California. I also met my wife there, which is, again, she's also a winemaker, is in the wine industry, which is fascinating. So that's why that harvest was so special. That's in Casablanca Valley. It's a coastal valley, and it has a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, but a lot of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay as well. And that was a bigger operation, but again, I learned so much. from Rodrigo and from my wife. She wasn't my wife, of course, at the time, but I learned so much from them. It's pretty special. And then I came back to California, and this time I went to Quintessa. I work at Harvest at Napa, and then I went to Quintessa. And the wines are exceptional, of course, but there was something about there that I wanted to learn, experience, and it was like excellence. I really want to winemaking, the winery was so beautiful, so pristine, so clean, and the wines that were coming out, they were incredible. I really want to learn that or experience that at least, right? Again, excellent harvest. It was 2013, I believe. After that, I came back to Chile and I got a job back at Emiliana Winery as an assistant winemaker for a couple of years. Learn a lot. That's again a big operation, it's all organic and biodynamic, bigger. And then I finally got my break. I got a job at Kingston Family Vineyards in Casablanca Valley as head winemaker, and stayed there for 7 years, a little bit over 7 years, before moving to Oregon.
What was the leap like into start with the assistant winemaker role? Because obviously that's that you have some buy-in at that point. You're making a lot of decisions. You're doing a lot of work, and you're not out after harvest, right? So tell me about that experience for you.
Yeah, absolutely. The winemaking team there, they're pretty great, talented people, with so much experience. And again, I learned so much about, it's like how to run a very successful, bigger winery, all the logistics, a lot of that too. So, I was trying to build an experience, a career, understanding small operation, medium-sized operation, big operations, to understand how do you work differently, right? How to extrapolate different things depending on the place that you are. And for me, that job, the first time that I was doing a whole year in a winery, I was able to see all the different other tasks, that you just know about, but you don't see. Like blending, choosing the blend, and that for me, I think that was a huge jump in my career, to really have the experience to taste with Alvaro Espinosa, which is again a fantastic winemaker, a fantastic mentor, who really taught me how to understand blends. We were focusing on red varieties mostly, but that's an art. It's you have to be so creative. You have to understand the place, the wine so well to have the perfect blend, and that was for me one of the best things that I can take out of that job. It was tasting with Alvaro. It was pretty incredible. And after that, right? I got the call. I changed 100% the style and the location and the varieties that I was working, right? I jumped to a coastal valley specializing in Pinot and Chardonnay, which was one of the main reasons that I started working in wine. So it took me back of what I really wanted to do.
So I'm curious with both those roles. You mentioned kind of the year round, you're seeing the blending, you're seeing the off season. What was your reaction to that, not having the kind of the harvest high? What was your reaction to the slower parts of the year, or the different parts of the year? Did you enjoy the whole process? Did you find yourself kind of missing the rush?
Oh, 100%, right? Harvest for me is it finished. Don't get me wrong, after it finished, it usually takes a good break, in November, early December. I need it, it's it goes, it's intense. But after that, I start to miss it, Harvest, it's the most exciting time of the year for sure. You're the decision that you're making will impact something that people's gonna be drinking in 2 years or more, which is for me, it's just fascinating when you really think about it, right? It's impressive. And I love, honestly, I fell in love with the whole process when I work a year round, and I truly I understood, right, that this whole winemaking, it's like a race, you know. And harvest, of course, you make the most important decisions, right? But mistake happens. They do. Like every single harvest, you know, something gets mixed or something gets like misadd or whatever, right? It happens, you know, and it's gonna keep happening, you know, like after 3 or a month, you know, of like long hours, you know, we don't get a break, people get tired, you know, they all make this mistakes. But how I started like to see that, you know, is that you can actually make a mistake when you're starting a race, right? and when the wine starts to evolve, you know, the room for mistake get a little bit smaller, you know, like you can like fall down starting a race, you can still win the race, right? You can still do it. If you fall down before bottling or getting to the finish line, that's it, you know. So it's a good thing that we do that we have harvest as a starting race, you know, and people are tired a lot, it's intense, and then we can make all the very sensitive decisions, you know, blending decisions, you know, like blending, tasting decision, all of those stuff, you know, when we're closer to the finish line and people are well rested. Again, it's like, I mean, like a soccer tournament, right? It's like the World Cup. You can lose a couple of games in the group stage, and you can still win the title. You know, the longer you go, the less mistake you can make, and that's how I transmitted it to the team as well. It's like, okay, I mean, let's try to minimize those mistakes, you know, but I'm not that they're gonna happen, right? As long as they don't happen in a year from now. So yeah, I mean, that's, going back to your question, I love harvest so much, and I missed it every single year. I mean, now, I'm just like, it's gonna be cold, so I don't wanna think to start about breaking yet, but I want to start picking, you know, it's exciting. It's like being able to see another vintage, you know, to see how the wines are gonna express themselves in this particular year. But so I was missing that 100%, but at the same time I was learning so much about the other part of the race, you know, not just the starting point. And I love it, you know, I was fascinated by that, you know, because I was able to see the bottle product that I was making, you know. I tasted some of the ones that I was involved, you know, during harvest, but being present for the whole process, that's pretty unique. You know, I felt so lucky and so like fortunate to be able to experience that at a young age, of course.
You talked earlier about sort of your first time sort of blending, tasting. Tell me about that. What's the process like the first time you do it, and what is it? How does it build for you? How does that kind of sensory experience build for you?
Ooh, it was intimidating, right? I remember being in the same room with guys, you know, winemakers, you know, that they had like years and years of experience. They were the first thing is that they were noticing things that I have no idea what they're talking about, right? I was like a junior assistant winemaker, soaking all up, right? Don't get me wrong, but it was pretty intimidating, you know. And just again, I sat down there and just learned, you know, being humble with a lot of humility, you know, just please, like I want this whole experience. I really want to learn this stuff. It felt great, you know, because after like spending so much time with that winemaking team, I noticed that I was getting so much better, you know. I was seeing what they were seeing, right? I was like thinking about the blending that they were thinking about. I started like getting into it wasn't a competition, right? But we were like have a different blend propositions, you know, and I was starting to do my own thing there, you know, and that was pretty incredible, you know. Like for the first time I was like, okay, this is winemaking for real, right? It's not only part of the harvest, you know, it's like this, I'm in the industry, and it's pretty incredible, you know. But yeah, it was pretty intimidating at first, you know. But at the same time, like, it's what I said before. It's like when you are surrounded by people that knows more than you, they have a lot more experience than you. It's just fantastic, you know. You learn so much, you know. The only thing that you can do is learn, and that's exactly how I took it. It was like, excellent. The only thing that I can do is it's learn. And I was like having like 10 different notebooks, you know, taking notes from what like Emilio, Alvaro, like everyone was saying, you know, about things that they were noticing on the wines, you know, studying things, just studying, and then taste it again. It's a repetition thing. It's like going to a gym, you know, it's like working out, you know, that is difficult nowadays, but as we were talking, but it's just repetition, and your body, your palate, your sensory aspect, you know, gets used to it.
So when we jumped ahead a little bit earlier, you talked about sort of first time head winemaker making those kinds of decisions. Tell me how the first year went as a head winemaker. What were the successes and what were the things you wish you'd done different?
Oh, that was stressful times, you know, but one of the best times that I had, right? I was lucky enough to have a really good consultant back in the time. And in this particular winery I was working with Rodrigo Soto, you know. He was consulting me, so basically we were like walking the vineyards a lot, you know, just trying to understand the terroir, you know, the best approach to get the best expression out of that place. And the vineyard is beautiful, you know, it's like very different than here, right? It's in the Coolstone range, but it's very old, a little bit older than this, and it's all granite, you know, it's all like decomposite granite, so it's the expression, you know, the whole character of the wine, of the Pinot Noirs and Chardonnay are very, very different. So again, it was a lot of challenges. It was a smaller winery back then, you know, we were making 5,000-7,000 cases, you know. And working with different varieties, like not only Pinot and Chardonnay, we were doing a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc, Syrah, Cool Climate Syrah, and a tiny bit of Merlot as well, Cool Climate Merlot. So the challenge for me was like, again, small winery, there's not a lot of room for mistakes, right? You know, this like whole race this soccer tournament that I was like picturing in my mind, you know, okay, this just got a lot thinner, right? Because I'm not working with a lot of wine. It's a tiny bit, you know, so I need to be very specific. So if you ask me, you know, some of the successes was like being on top of every single thing, you know, I had to, you know, it was a very prestigious brand, you know, making really high-end stuff, all like, which is pretty different than Chile, you know, because Chile is mostly in the wholesale market. This was only DTC, especially in one market we did, that was the US. So again, like prestigious, so I had like to really be on top of things. And it was challenging 100%, you know, it's like had to like relearn so many things. I mean, I'm really grateful that I had a great mentor during that period of time. It was pretty fantastic. And again, like blending red varieties, you know, like Bordeaux varieties, it's pretty different than blending Pinot Noir. I mean, they couldn't be more different. So I also had a different consultant from California called Byron Kosugi. He has his own brand right now. He's a super smart, very, very smart person, great winemaker, very talented, with one of the best palate I ever had, you know. He, like, again, taught me how to see things way ahead, you know. It's like, yeah. And that was the first time that I trying, like, learn I don't like the word art too much, but for me, looking at this guy blending Pinot Noirs, it was almost like a form of art, you know. It's like two things that didn't make sense, you know, that were just okay lots. Put them together and you get something very special. And again, it was all back to to my childhood memories, like building layers and complexity into a simple product, right? That was one of, success is 100%, like learning. Every single year for me, there's like room for improvement, 100%, it's like, and I love that, I don't like perfection. I don't. I think that's it's like the enemy of creativity. Being perfect. Make a perfect wine. That's like you should stop then. So of course, like every single harvest, I learn something different. Again, because every single harvest is different. So making a perfect wine, I don't think that's possible, in the best possible way. Don't get me wrong. I think it's always good to challenge yourself, to learn from your mistake. It's going to happen, every single vintage. And that's a good thing, like that's a great thing.
When you took that role as head winemaker, did you feel like you were ready for it?
I was. Yes. I honestly, I was very stressed, I lost like 15 kilos, that first year. I was like 30 pounds, I don't know. I was getting married that year, when I first got that job. And I was like, poor, I went to the tailor, and he took my measurements. And we have like session every single week, like maybe every 2 other weeks, I don't remember correctly, but every time that I went, it's like, man, you're killing me here. You need to stop losing weight. Like you're gonna disappear. There were so many things that I needed to figure it out. I started in July. It was the middle of winter, which is a really good moment to start. And I was getting married in January. That was so hard. I didn't have. It's like I knew, or I had the tools that I needed. I didn't know that I have them, So I had had a lot of conversations around stuff, walk a lot, meditate a lot, in the vineyards. I think I was ready. Don't get me wrong. I love it so much, and I really wanted to understand what my style was. I was in a bigger winery, and I was following the decision of other winemakers. Learning a lot. Don't get me wrong. It was fantastic. But I want to be the person in charge. I really did, because I really like what I was doing, and I really and I was confident that I could make good wines, I just needed to work hard to learn how to make it, and that's what I did that year, but the thing is that that was stressful, but the second year and the third and the fourth and the fifth, they were all stressful, right? And that's one of the beauties of being a winemaker. Maybe not for everyone, but that's the things that I like. Is that it's like you have to be calm. You have to transmit calm, especially to your team and everything. But it's good that you're slightly stressed. That you don't get too comfortable in the job. It's a way to pushing your limits. To be better every single day, every single harvest. So it's weird when you ask that, right? Because I still, I'm not that young anymore, but I still think of myself like, oh, I'm very young, I need to learn so much, and I do. Don't get me wrong, right? But now I'm managing the production side of this facility. And it's, again, every single day is challenging. And every single day there's some form of stress. And I love that, You have to love it. Otherwise, winemaking is like that, right? So yeah, I was ready. It was stressful, don't get me wrong, but I was very proud of myself after that first harvest, you know. I had, like, don't get me wrong, like good support from the owners, you know, from the consultant. But I mean, I was so happy, you know, and it was, of course, a difficult year, right? We had so much rain in April, you know, which is like similar to maybe September, right? And we need to bring all the syrup, and it was like low breaks, you know, there's a lot of more limitation what you can add in Chile than in other places of the world, for example, like chaptalizing, it's completely illegal, for example, things like that. And it was extremely challenging, you know, because I mean, I was like all the Pinot Noir, the Chardonnay, and the Sauvignon Blanc was in, but a big chunk of our production was Syrah, and that was just like not in the best state, you know. So I mean, you can imagine that it was a little bit disappointed, you know. It ended up being like different expression, whatever, but it was still really, really good. But it was very stressful, and again, it's going to be stressful, and it's every single time. It's part of being a winemaker, I guess.
You brought up the kind of the idea of managing and of a team. So tell me about being in that role of managing other people, building a team, supporting a team. How did that go, and how has that evolved for you?
I mean, for me, that's everything. I think it's the most challenging and most important aspect, you know, dealing with people. It can be very, very challenging, of course. Don't get me wrong. It's like sometimes I wish I could just work with vines, right? There's so much more to it. Because of those, but at the same time, it's been my number one priority in every single job that I have. Building a team, a strong team, you know, that they get my vision, you know, they understand what we're doing, you know, they ask a lot of questions, you know, they challenge me. I like a team that can challenge me 100%, you know. I don't have a big ego, you know, I love what I do, you know, and there's another idea in my team that is better, I'm more than happy to take it, right? So, I mean, and that's been my approach, like always, in all of my jobs. If I spend enough time building a team, you know, confident, you know, that they don't miss me when I'm not here, for example, you know, to make myself not essential, that I think it's a really good thing, you know, not being essential in an operation. I think your job is really well done, and I always try to do that, you know. It's like build teams, because everything else, you know, I mean, of course you need to great terroir, you know, a great farming team, a great team of interns, you know. But if you start with a strong team, everything else will come so easily, you know. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that's what it's so exciting about this place right now, you know. I think Gretchen has done a fantastic job doing exactly that. It's building a strong team, you know, and again, it's like, as you know, like it's been a couple of interesting years, you know, a lot of different changes here at the winery. But we couldn't be more excited about what's coming, you know. And back then, you know, I had exactly the same approach, you know, identifying the strong people, you know, identifying their own strength, identifying as well, you know, the places that need support, you know, getting those people aligned, you know, and just build a team. The best place, and the best situation to see all of those aspects, it's of course harvest, right? You see them like multitasking, you know, they see stress, they see happy, there's a lot of emotions, you know, happening in harvest. So that's, I think, is the best place, moment to really get to know one of your teammates. I was lucky enough, you know, I wouldn't call it lucky because it was pretty stressful. I started just before the harvest 2022, just before, starting in September, we started bringing fruit like a couple of weeks later. Yeah, hardest thing I ever done. But at the same time, it was so great to get to know my team right away. To understand the dynamic. To understand things that get them stressed, things that get them relaxed. And after that, we could actually relax, sit down, and start from there. I thought after a month of working with them, side by side during harvest, I knew them so well, right? So that was, it was a really good thing that came out of that situation, of course. And again, it's a process. Like everything in the wine industry, it's a process, right? So we do have a strong team right now, and we'll continue to get stronger.
I'm curious about, you said you spent 7 years at the winery in Chile. Tell me about spending that amount of time at a place and getting to know it, getting to understand the terroir of it, getting to understand the dynamics of it. How confident did you feel? How comfortable did you feel by the time you left that you understood? How much did you understand what was going on there?
Just the surface, I just scratched the surface, right? If you think about the domains or the Grand Cru in Burgundy, they've been doing this for centuries, So I think, again, it's an ongoing thing. And after spending 7 years, I was so proud of what we're doing. We were doing back then, the wines that were tasting great. We were doing really well with critics. But I think that the wines that we were making, they were delicious. They were true expression of those places. But at the same time, there's so many things that can be done, right? It's after 7 years for me, personally, I think it was a fantastic cycle, But as winemakers, we're just part of a small part of the lifespan of the vines, the vineyard, even the company, right? So we can add, we can do the best that we can, and that's fantastic, don't get me wrong. But it's we need to, in a way, let our egos, behind. That's what I did, Aside, it's I'm just an actor on this whole movie, right? It's just a huge production and just adding my grain of salt. And that's it. I think, that any vineyard, it's a long process, I remember being the owner of the company, because Quintessa wine, the 19, got 100 points. And he said it really took 30 years, It's 30 years, just to get to, the wines have always been incredible, but to really express the place perfectly, or not perfect, but in the best possible way, it took a while, a long time, And again, 7 years is just a tiny amount of time when it comes to really understanding a place. We have tools, we have specialists that that can help us to understand the vineyard, the place a bit better, really understand the terroir, but it's gonna take a while. So again, I was comfortable making those wine. I was very happy and proud of what we were doing, but I also understand that I'm just a small. Even those vines, they're pretty young when it comes to comparing vineyards. They were planting in the mid '90s. So even in that life, I was maybe a third of that, right? And we were just understanding, how to express that place a little bit better, And again, I think it will take a while.
Well, given that, what was the impact, the greatest impact you felt you had while you were there?
I started to not find nature, I think that's been an approach always. It's try to understand why, and it's gonna sound romantic, right? Don't get me wrong, it's gonna sound romantic, but in a very weird way, it is, and it doesn't show up at first, you need a couple of harvests in your belt to understand it, in the same location, but it's not to find nature, it's if we have one block, it's like raising a kid, it's you can shape it until like one. I mean, you can put some limits and boundaries, but that kid it's gonna grow. I mean, it's already been shaped. That's what I mean, right? So you can put some like limits, and they can bounce, and you can like maybe switch or adjust those limits, so you can actually, I don't know, like modeling or like putting in on track or back on track, and that's the same thing you can do in a vineyard, right? It's like you cannot make something that the terroir won't express, right? So paying attention to all of those details, and sometimes, we break apart a block, for example, in a vineyard, just out of convenience, when we're establishing a place. It doesn't make sense. I mean, not always makes the sense, to harvest that block in particular, You have so many different variables, going into a single block, and each one of those small parcels, they need attention to detail and different attention, Again, it's like having kids, You don't. I have 2 girls, and there's always this sense of justice that it's not being made, Oh God, it's like and this is in my experience. It's like we give you, girls, what you need, You don't always need the same thing, And we're gonna make the best possible job to understand what those needs are, But it's not. We cannot treat you the same because you're very, very different. And for me, it's. Being a father has helped me so much understanding and like aspect in viticulture and winemaking, to be honest. But it's like the same thing in different blocks and different parcels. It's like we cannot treat everything the same, So I'm trying, and that's one of the things that I think had the biggest impact on my last job, and that's one of the things that we are starting to do here at Benton-Lane as well. It's treat everything. That again, not everything needs the same. Not everything needs to prune the same. Not everything needs to farm. Cover crops. That's why, we need to separate single lots, or single blocks, or even different parcels within the block. Some blocks will, depending on the soil, the aspects, they will express themselves better in a closed top. Other ones in an open top. Different barrels. There's so many variables, right? And being able to understand all of that takes so much time and a lot of effort and a lot of work, but it's the most exciting thing you can do. It's like, wow, like putting your all energy in understanding a place. For me, that's pretty exciting, Again, it's like being a parent. It's like, it's funny. I remember having a conversation with one of my mentors, Rodrigo, I mentioned that before. And I think when I got married, or when we got engaged, it's like, you make good wines, Amael, Now you're really going to understand, what winemaking is all about. And I nearly knew what he meant back then, but like understanding the natural process of life, having kids as well, it's like treat everything differently. And again, it's all about patience.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Love that. So let's talk about why you're here.
Ooh.
How did you get to Benton-Lane, and how did you get here right before harvest?
That's a good question, And honestly, we need to go back a little bit. This was 15 years ago, I remember. 15 years ago, 12, 14 years ago. I was just out of university. I think I was I just graduated, right? I mean, I did my 5 years, and I did like 2 extra years of my thesis, right? I had to work my thesis. So, out of university, no experience at all. Didn't know who I needed to talk to. Didn't know who the players were. I mean, I have no idea. I was in Chile, very young, with this winemaker degree that didn't, I mean, it wasn't important at all, right? It all comes with experience. So I was talking to my professor back then, and I think he gave me a phone number. It's like, he's not gonna pick up, but maybe you should try to call him, if you wanna sit down, because I was like expressing this concern. Maybe you should try to call him. You might, maybe you will be able to sit down or ask him a couple of questions, or he can give you some recommendation. It turned out that phone number was from Agustin Juneo's senior, the owner of the company. I mean, this company that I work right now. And I think this was maybe 2011, 2012, something like that. And I remember one morning, just picking up the phone and calling him, Again, I didn't know who, I knew he was an important part of the industry, don't get me wrong, but coming out of school, I didn't know the importance, right? Called him, to my surprise, he did pick up, and I asked him, like, hey, you don't know me, you have no idea who I am, I'm out of university, and I will love if I can buy you a coffee and have 5 minutes of your time. That's all I need. And he was so nice, He was he was staying at the coast, and he said, yes, come and see me. Took the bus, a couple of hours to get to his house in the coast. Knocked on his door, and he was such a wonderful person, so much knowledge, We sat down there, we actually stayed for a couple of hours talking about recommendations, the industry. And at the end of the conversation, he told me, he said, I think it will be good for you to come to Flowers. I think they just acquired Flowers a couple of years ago, a couple of years back in Sonoma. And I said, I will do whatever you want. Whatever you say, I'll do it. Next thing, I got an email, I think, from Rodrigo, who was at Veramonte at the time. And I came for a harvest here, right? And that was my first relationship with the company. And then I went back to Veramonte. I came back to Quintessa, another of the company harvest. Of the company wineries. And I met a lot of people, the winemakers there. They were pretty extraordinary team of people. And it's one of those phone calls, that just shaped your whole career. Because I went back to Chile, had this job, and then I got an email from Gretchen, who again, Rodrigo was working at Quintessa, so there's this guy in Chile, it's maybe you should meet him. And we started talking, we clicked, and I was part of the selection process, of course, right? And I got I got the job, and again, it was the same company that I started working my harvest 10 years ago. So it felt all pretty serendipitous. And at the same time, Oregon for me, I was lucky enough to visit Oregon back in 2017. I went to Steamboat. I was amazed about the quality of the wine, but most the quality of the people, the sense of camaraderie, the working together, and it's my God, I was tasting the wines and these wines are incredible, and there's no secret, everyone is sharing their problems, their challenges in an open table. It was such a different approach that I was used to. That was pretty incredible. I went to IPNC the same year. It's oh my God, this is the place that I was just so excited about that, right? Then Sofia actually came a couple of times to IPNC after that, when she was working in Chile. And we loved the community, loved the wines, loved the place, right? So when this opportunity appeared, we were yeah, let's do it, and we make the decision. We actually close our house. We sell everything. We sold everything. This was like, I don't know, back in early July. We sold everything, and we came here with our 2 daughters, and like 5 bags, and that's it. We moved to Oregon, to Corvallis. And that was just early September, after Labor Day, I remember. So that was pretty incredible. I mean, you can imagine the craziness of that harvest, like trying to settle in, the girls at school, trying to find a place, but also prepping for harvest on a place that I didn't know too well, right? So that's why I got here, which is, it was intense, it was pretty difficult, but it was so much worth it. It was so great, I'm pretty excited about Benton-Lane and Oregon. I'm so excited about what's coming, It's that's what we were talking before coming here, right? It's like, if you like Pinot, you like Char, this is the place to be. This is when you wanna continue your career, It's like this is gonna be the place that the best Pinots and Chardonnay are coming from in the new world, for sure. So it was challenging, of course, but in a professional perspective, was a pretty easy decision. Working in a company as Tejuneos, the level of professionalism is incredible. Every single person in the team, in the whole company, they're just excellent. The focus that they're putting in each one of their wineries, it's all about quality. I do remember, the first conversation that I had with the CEO when I was hired. It's like, Amael, and honestly, that felt such a, coming from a country like Chile, that it's a very competitive market. It's kind of difficult. He said, your overall, your number one priority is quality. That's all. I was like, that feels good. That really feels good, right? So yeah, it wasn't easy to see. it was tough, but when you look at it like that, it was pretty easy.
So obviously, first harvest was a bit of a whirlwind, and that. So tell me about 2023. Tell me about sort of first normal year and harvest.
Yeah.
How did that process go, and how are sort of things looking for you so far?
Excellent. Yeah, 2023 was incredible. Pretty intense, hot and fast. The fruit was. It was a pretty challenging year. Really late bud break. May 1st. Then we have like a June 6th flowering. And then we didn't have a single drop of rain in whole summer in 4 months, right? Pretty warm. So sugar went accumulating, in August, early September, but we weren't seeing any flavor development in the vineyard. But then we had those crazy gifts from nature. We had a milder weather, it was almost cloudy. We actually got a couple of drops here for almost 2 weeks, I think it was 11 days. And that gave the vines enough time to catch up on flavors, and we started September 11th. Rain were coming, in, I think it was September 24th, 25th. And the grapes, the grapes were ready, we just needed to pick them up, And we brought everything in 13 days. So it was we brought everything on before the rain, and so it was pretty intense, as you can imagine. I was coming from a 3 month harvest in Chile, it was so extent to have it condensed like this, I didn't see my family during, of course, that period of time, but they were all very happy that it lasted just 2 weeks and not 3 months, right? So that's good. So that was the harvest aspect. I was a lot more comfortable. Don't get me wrong, I will never be comfortable. It's what we're talking about. It's there's so many challenges out there, but I felt a lot better, right, than the previous year. I was actually able to understand some of the the expression of some of the blocks, you know, how to separate things, you know, keep everything separate. We have, like, this is a interesting thing. We have 86 different blocks, you know. So there's a lot of different variables, you know. We have different elevation, 300 feet. We start right here, 350 feet of elevation, all the way to over 850 feet in just 1 mile. So it gets pretty steep. So you have that variability. You have different, I mean, pretty much every single clone that you can imagine on every single rootstock. And the diversity on soil is pretty spectacular and unique. You know, we did this electroconductivity mapping a couple of years back, and it looks like a rainbow. It's like so many different profiles, right? The difference of expression that I've been seeing in just one vineyard, I've never seen it in my life. You know, like taking something from this, like sedimentary soils right here, to the volcanic on top, it's like this cannot be from the same world, right? It's just so different. So I was able to actually dial that in a little bit more. You know, it's a work in progress, you know, as everything in winemaking. So I felt like the overall results are, I mean, the quality of the 22 I think is fantastic. The quality on 2023 I think is even better. I'm really excited about that. You know, the ones are evolving. Again, very different vintage. You know, the vintage variation that I've been seeing here is like, again, extraordinary, which is exciting. You know, it's like, okay, we need to, again, understand how to take more variables out of the equation to have, again, consistency in quality, right? Because consistency in expression is going to change every single year. But consistency in quality, we need to have that, right? So we had a more stronger, solid team, you know, that I knew a lot better than the previous year, of course. We had a fantastic group of interns, you know, that made a huge difference. We have like new winemaking tools, right? New equipment, new sorting line that actually helped the process a lot. Different tanks, bigger, new tanks as well, that actually facilitate the whole process a lot better. So I feel very grateful and very optimistic and extremely happy about the results so far. Mm-hmm. Very happy about the 3. I'm more excited about the 2024. I just want harvest again. You
can always just pop down to Chile and do it.
I know they're starting harvest right now, right? So yeah, I can always do that. Yeah, but it's. The thing is I'm just excited about this place. It's like I really want to do this.
You'd mentioned earlier that you'd been to Oregon in 2017 and you had an impression of it. Tell me about being here now more permanently. Was the impression the same? What's been your impression of being a part of the industry?
Yeah, different impression, of course, right? I came here to as a spectator, right? You know, Steamboat was incredible experience. You know, it's like, oh God, I wish we had something like that back in Chile. You know, I remember like trying to do something, you know, but it didn't work out too well. IPNC for me was like this is the real deal. You know, this is incredible. You know, being in McMinnville, you know, Linfield College, it was impressive. It was incredible to see all these producers, you know, making exceptional wines. You know, this understanding all the French influences. You know, they were coming into Oregon, like Burgundian influence. It was again insane, like eye opener. From the inside, the perspective again is like I couldn't be more excited about the community. You know, it's like every time that you go to this. I just was in the Chardonnay celebration, you know, last Saturday, and they're all so really nice people. You know, down to earth. You know, sharing every single detail of their winemaking thing. You know, there's no secrets there, you know. And I really admire that, you know, because me too, I'm an open book when it comes to winemaking. It's like, yeah, I mean, like there's nothing that I wouldn't share, you know. It's like we are doing wine from this location right here, right? It's like and we're gonna make excellent wine, excellent expression, and it's gonna be totally different from any other wine that people will make. So it's like that's not even a thing for me. Doesn't make sense. So that was like, again, it's so great to see from the inside. But at the same time, you know, I think I mean, don't get me wrong, like the overall quality of the wines in Oregon are incredible, you know, especially Pinot and Chard. I think they are the wines that are showing the best, like worldwide. I think that like incredible. I mean, after tasting the Chardonnays last Saturday, there was a couple of things that is like out of this world. They were so incredible, like so inspirational. You know, Pinot Noirs, the same thing. You know, they're like the quality that is coming from some of these places are out of this world. It's incredible. But at the same time, I still think there's so much potential here. You know, it's still, which is incredible. You know, just tasting the quality overall right now, and seeing the potential that it still needs. You know, I think in an interesting way, we're just again scratching some of the surface here. You know, we are like recognizing some of the small parts, you know, the grand cru of some of the AVAs, you know. And that's, I mean, it's going to take a while, you know, but it's not going to take centuries, you know, like, as it did in Burgundy, right? It's going to take a couple of years, you know, and I truly believe in the quality that it's coming, you know, the professionalism, the sense of community that is coming from Oregon. And I do believe that the best wines of the new world are going to come from here. You know, I do. Pinot Noirs and Chardonnay, it's going to blow out. It's going to explode, you know, in the best possible way, don't get me wrong. It's going to explode, and it's going to make a huge impact in the world. I mean, I think it's the most exciting wine it's one of the most exciting regions to be making wine right now, for sure. The Willamette Valley, in particular for me, I think is so exciting, you know. It's new, the wines are interesting, you know, the wines are full of character, full of uniqueness, which is pretty incredible. But I still think it's gonna take a couple of years, you know, but it's gonna explode, you know, and it's gonna reach every single corner. I'm here because I'm a believer, you know, on this region, on these wines, you know, and spending time with Gretchen, like, also been so incredible, you know, to like really understand some of the history behind it, right? She knows everyone in the industry, like pretty much everyone. So like being involved in that part too, you know, it's like, oh, like, this place has everything. The talent, the terroir. We just need to dial a couple things in, you know, understand a couple of things here and there especially when it comes to recognizing terroir, and it's going to explode.
So as you look down the road, obviously new to Oregon and looking at spending time here, tell me about where the industry's headed besides that you feel like you're kind of on the cusp of this kind of thing. What else is going to happen to the industry, or what do you kind of foresee happening for Oregon wine?
Again, I mean, what we're talking about, I think it's going to, I see a lot of promising years coming, 100%. I do believe that we might, as an industry, don't get me wrong, I think we might need to focus a little bit, you know, when it comes to production, you know. The wine needs to be awesome. It needs to be unique. It needs to like represent a place, don't get me wrong, but also needs to be, people need to drink it, people need to sell it, people need to buy it, you know. And you know, it's going to be a difficult year, you know. This is not Oregon, only Oregon, right? It's a worldwide, it's tough. It's going to be a rough year. Hopefully it's not going to take too long, you know, but we're going to bounce back. I'm positive on that, you know, especially in this company. We're working so hard to stay on top of things, you know, and bounce back when the economy does. But yeah, again, I think only good things for Oregon. But also, I do believe that we need to maybe, narrow down the focus a little bit more, you know, as an industry, to really like being able to really sell, you know, a successful company, a successful wine. Sometimes it can be very tough to, you know, depending only on DTC, right? We saw that during the pandemic, it could be very difficult. So maybe, yeah, we need to expand some other possibilities, you know, as an industry, to run a more sustainable business.
So tell me a little bit about your approach to winemaking and how it's evolved. Obviously, you talked a little bit about style a bit before, but been a head winemaker now for enough time to have kind of developed your own style, your own beliefs. How would you describe that?
That's a really good question, you know. I think my style, I do like refreshing, vibrant, really energetic wines, you know, which is a really good thing because I think the natural expression of Oregon is like that, especially in here the Benton-Lane vineyard is exactly like that. It does tend to, when you're working with Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, those two varieties right there are just the perfect vessel to show a place, to showcase a place. So a lot of, I can put all my inputs, you know, but at the same time, it's like the style, you know, it's made, most of the style is made in the vineyard, right? It's coming from the soil, it's coming from the different parcels. So we can play around as much as possible, you know, but again, we cannot change nature. We can only put some walls around it, you know, so we can guide them. But I have to say that my style, for example, you know, has changed from my previous job to this one, right? For example, when it comes to whole cluster use, you know, whole bunch, granitic soils in the coastal range of Chile. You need to use them. You know, you need to use in pretty much all varieties, you know, to express the full potential of that place. Here is so different. It's so different, you know. So for example, that's one of the things that I'm dialed down a little bit, you know, especially in volcanic soils. On warm years, like last year, for example, you know, it's too much, you know. You have volcanic soil that already full mineral, like iodine expression, dense and structure, and when you put whole bunch, for example, in the mix, you know, you are getting too much of it, you know. So I think we need to pay a lot of attention how the vintage is going, you know, and the diversity of soils, you know, is something I've never seen before, right? So is again shifting my style a little bit, you know, in the use for whole cluster, for example, a lot, you know, we have some sedimentary soil right here in the bottom of the vineyard. For example, on the volcanic side, just minimal intervention, basically, you know, almost like a tea bag, you know, passive extraction, did the whole job, did the whole thing, and the wine was concentrated and full of texture and structure, right? For example, over here, we couldn't extract enough, you know, we pump over and pump after pump over, and the wine was lovely and soft and elegant, right? So to understand that thing, you know, and to have that different in the same vineyard, that's pretty unique, right? So I'm guessing my style has shifted a little bit, you know, understanding this particular vineyard right here, especially when it comes to these two varieties, you know, it's they're already expressing themselves in the way that they want. We can only guide them a little bit along the way.
Let's talk about your future. We talk about Oregon's future. Let's talk about your future a little bit. What are you sort of looking ahead to, either personally, professionally, otherwise, in the coming years?
Oh, that's a really good one. You know, I love it here. I love the company. I love the ones that we're making. I love the people that I work with. I love what we're doing as a company. I do. At the same time, it's been a family adventure as well, you know. Bringing the whole family here, it's been an intense process, of course, you know, but we are very excited, you know. So I see myself here for a while, you know. I mean, because of, again, professional aspect, you know, learning here, again, this is me, like, just being excited about this place and about the region. So I see myself, like, staying here, like, a while. And from a family perspective, personal perspective, you know, it's like, we've been having so much quality family time, with my wife and the two girls, that it feels really good, you know. It feels like home.
Are there any projects on your horizon? Anything you want to change around here? Anything you want to mess with or tinker with or experiment with?
Yeah. I mean, again, we're just starting the geology study here at Benton-Lane. You know, we're gonna work with a couple of different people. It's gonna be very, very exciting. You know, it's like what we're talking before. It's like we need to be consistent in quality, right? So if we understand what's underneath, we can actually take some variables out of the equation, you know, in order to control the quality aspect of it, you know. So if we can actually confirm that this, like, block over here, all this, like, volcanic range goes in the middle of the vineyard, you know, we can actually split the block in half, you know, and treat them separately, both in the vineyard and winery. So we are starting with that study, you know, hopefully pretty soon, and that's going to be extremely exciting, you know. Again, it's like every year we understand a little bit more to get closer and closer to a perfect wine. We don't want to do a perfect wine, you know, as we mentioned, you know, that's the enemy. But we need to, like, as long as, I mean, the closer we can get to that goal, the better. And all start at the vineyard, right? We have the right tools and we have the right team here and I feel very comfortable interpreting the blocks in the best possible way. We just need to take some variables out of the equation, you know, to do that. Yeah, and again, like, every single year we would jump tiny bit in quality, you know, dial things down, understanding each single block, what's the best extraction program, for example, right? What's the best barrels, not only for the wine, you know, but just for that specific block, you know. So we do that with the winemaking team, you know. We taste through every single barrel, you know, in every single lot, just to understand things, you know. So we took a couple of coopers out, we put another back in, we trial a couple of things, you know. So every single year we'll dial in certain things, you know, again, to get to that goal. So yeah, so it's all about understanding the vineyard better.
All right. That's all the questions that I have for you. Anything I didn't ask that I should have, or anything we didn't cover today that you'd like to cover?
Oh, I don't know. I think we covered a lot. Did we?
I feel like we covered a lot, yeah.
Cool. I mean, that was great.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for time and for sharing your stories with us, sharing this beautiful space. The sun's even trying to come out on this frigid February day. So thank you very much, and we'll go ahead and let you off the hook.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was awesome.